toss a coin into the Trevi Fountain, you're destined to return to Rome. But no one speaks of what stirs beneath the surface, or what shadows awaken if your wish isn't welcome. Welcome back, wanderers of the weird, to 9 Lives of Fear, the place where stories shimmer like mirages and vanish into nightmares. Today, we journey to the heart of Italy, where sunlight kisses stone and echoes of empire never sleep. It begins, as many dreams do, with wanderlust, a longing for beauty, history, and something ancient that can't be captured in photos. A coin, a wish, a whisper into water. But some places remember more than they show, and some wishes ripple deeper than we know. Our tale follows a traveler, curious, bold, aching for something real. Not the Rome in postcards, but the Rome hidden in alleyways and ruins, behind the veil of time. She wishes for the authentic Roman experience. And something hears her. Not marble gods in museums, not actors in costume on crowded piazzas, but the old gods, the buried ones, the ones who once ruled through blood, stone, and fear. They stir beneath the fountains. They listen from cracks in the cobblestones. And they answer. Rome shifts. The city she thought she knew unravels, thread by thread. Cafes turn into catacombs. Tourists vanish into frescoes that weren't there before. And the Trevi Fountain, once a place of hope and return, becomes a mouth with no bottom. This story is for dreamers, for those who toss wishes without thinking about who might catch them. It's for those who feel history breathing on the back of their neck. For those who believe the past is a ghost that never learned to sleep. So light a candle, hush the world outside, and follow me. Because Rome remembers its debts. And some coins aren't tossed, they're claimed. This is the curse of the Trevi Fountain, a tourist's nightmare. And it begins with one innocent wish. Whispered into ancient water.
The plane landed with only a slight bump, a gentle kiss on asphalt that felt like the official start of my Roman adventure. Rome. The eternal city. I had been dreaming of this trip for months, poring over guidebooks, practicing basic Italian phrases, mostly just gelato and of il bagno, and saving every spare dime. I wasn't just here to see the Colosseum or eat pasta until I exploded, I wanted something more. Something authentic, something steeped in the ancient magic that still seemed to hum beneath the modern bustle of the city. Stepping out of the airport and into the warm spring air felt like walking onto a movie set. The light hit the centuries-old buildings just right, casting long, dramatic shadows. The air smelled of espresso, exhaust fumes, and something else, something older, like damp stone and time itself. It was exactly as vibrant and mystical as I had hoped, and my excitement bubbled over, threatening to spill out in a series of delighted squeaks. I was Elena, 20 years old, armed with a backpack, a slightly outdated map, and an innocent, boundless desire for a unique, magical experience. This trip wasn't just a vacation, it was a quest for wonder. My first few days were a blur of iconic sights, delicious food, and getting delightfully lost in cobblestoned alleys. But the real magic, the kind I was seeking, felt just out of reach, hidden behind tourist traps and selfie sticks. I started talking to locals whenever I had the chance, trying to peel back the layers of the city. Most were kind, patient with my broken Italian, and happy to share tips about the best trattorias or hidden piazzas. It was an elderly woman, Maria, who ran a tiny antique shop near the Pantheon, who first spoke of the fountain. Not just any fountain, she explained, her eyes twinkling behind thick spectacles, but the fountain. The one where desires whispered into the splashing water could sometimes find wings. She spoke of ancient water spirits, of echoes from faiths far older than Christianity, and of a place where tourists sought a taste of the city's true, untamed magic. Many wish for love, for return, she murmured, sorting through a pile of dusty postcards. But some, they wish for other things. For a life changed. For the heart of Rome itself. Her voice dropped to a lower register. Be careful what you ask for, signorina. The oldest magic often asks a price. Her words lingered in my mind, planting a seed of intrigue that quickly blossomed into obsession. The Trevi Fountain. Of course, I knew of it. Everyone did. You tossed a coin to ensure your return to Rome. But Maria spoke of something deeper, something that went beyond a simple superstition. She spoke of a legend woven into the very stone, a place where the veil between worlds might be thin. I had to go. Not just to see the Baroque masterpiece, but to feel the power Maria spoke of, to seek that elusive, authentic magic I craved. Finding the fountain wasn't hard, the roar of the water and the throng of people led the way. But even the crowds couldn't diminish the captivating, slightly unsettling atmosphere. It was breathtakingly beautiful, sculpted figures teeming with life and drama, water cascading everywhere. Yet beneath the grandeur, there was a palpable sense of immense age and power. The stone looked worn, not just by weather, but by millennia of hopes, dreams, and, maybe other things. The air around it felt cooler, charged with a strange energy that made the hairs on my arms stand up. It was a place of both dazzling beauty and unknown power, a perfect stage for the kind of wish I was beginning to formulate. I pushed my way to the edge, joining the hundreds of faces, all gazing up at the magnificent artwork. People were laughing, taking photos, tossing coins with carefree smiles. They were wishing for love, or wealth, or safe travels. Simple, worldly things. My desire felt different, bolder. I clutched a euro coin in my hand, warm from my palm. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the sound of the water wash over me, trying to connect with the ancient energy I felt humming beneath the surface. I didn't want a fleeting wish. I wanted the experience. The real Rome, the one hidden beneath the surface, the one Maria hinted at. I wanted to understand this city, its history, its forgotten traditions, its heartbeat. I wanted to feel it, truly and deeply. I opened my eyes, looked at the majestic statues, and with a fervent whisper, not for return, but for something much more profound, I tossed the coin over my shoulder. I wish, I murmured, watching the glinting metal arc through the air and disappear into the churning water, for the authentic, true experience of Rome. Show me everything. The moment the coin left my hand, something shifted. It wasn't dramatic, no earthquake, no flash of light. It was subtle, almost imperceptible. The quality of the light seemed to change, becoming sharper, harsher. The sounds of the crowd seemed to recede slightly, replaced by a deeper, more resonant echo from the fountain itself. The faces around me, for just a second, they seemed to lose focus, their smiles fixed and slightly vacant, like mannequins. I shook my head, blinking. Just tired, I told myself. Too much walking, too much wonder. The feeling passed quickly, the crowd noise rushed back in, the light seemed normal again. But the brief, unsettling flicker lingered, a faint, cold knot forming in my stomach. The air felt heavier, charged with something new that wasn't just excitement anymore. A sense of foreboding had settled in, a chilling premonition that my wish, so innocently made, had just unlocked something I wasn't prepared for. The subtle shift was just the beginning. My reality began to unravel, slowly at first, then with terrifying speed. My authentic experience transformed from a romantic ideal into a horrifying nightmare. It started that evening. Walking back to my small hotel near Trastevere, the charming, winding streets felt different. The shadows seemed deeper, clinging to the walls like greedy hands. The sounds of the city were distorted. The cheerful chatter from restaurants occasionally morphed into guttural whispers that vanished when I turned my head. The beautiful, ancient architecture started to look wrong. Carvings I hadn't noticed before appeared on worn facades, grotesque faces, unsettling symbols that seemed to writhe in my peripheral vision. Gargoyles on rooftops seemed to watch me, their stone eyes following my steps. I tried to dismiss it as imagination, fatigue, or the effects of too much pasta and wine. But the feeling of being watched intensified. I'd glance over my shoulder and catch glimpses of movement, shadows detaching themselves from walls, figures that darted out of sight just as I focused. The faces of passers-by sometimes seemed distorted, their features elongating or twisting into brief, unpleasant masks before snapping back to normal. Their smiles felt predatory, their eyes empty. Panic began to set in, a cold dread that seeped into my bones. I tried to call home, to text friends, but my phone wouldn't connect. No signal, or sometimes, when I managed to get data, the screens of my apps would fill with swirling, unreadable symbols or distorted images of impossible places. The digital world, my link to normal reality, was severed. The beautiful city I had fallen in love with was morphing into something sinister, a labyrinth designed to trap and terrify. The famous fountains seemed to weep tears of murky water, the statues twisted into agonizing postures. The air grew cold, carrying the scent of damp earth and something metallic, like old blood. Every corner I turned seemed to lead me deeper into this twisted version of Rome. Familiar streets became dead ends, landmarks I knew were a block away seemed to have vanished, replaced by crumbling, vine-choked walls. I was utterly alone. The other people I saw, the tourists, the locals, they were part of the nightmare. Their eyes held no recognition, only cold indifference or a chilling hunger. I saw couples holding hands whose fingers seemed to meld together like wax, street performers whose jaunty tunes warped into discordant shrieks, vendors selling food that pulsed faintly with an inner light. This wasn't the authentic Rome of history books, it was the authentic Rome of nightmares, the Rome that existed beneath layers of plaster and tourism, the one built on ancient rites and forgotten gods. My wish had been granted, but not in the way I'd intended. I had asked to see everything, and everything included the city's dark heart. I ran. I don't know where I was going, only that I had to get away from the staring faces, the whispering walls, the feeling of being hunted by the city itself. My hotel was gone, replaced by a solid, windowless stone facade. The cheerful piazza where I'd eaten gelato yesterday was now a desolate square with a dead tree at its center, its branches like grasping claws against the perpetually twilight sky. This wasn't a dream. The fear was too real, the exhaustion too profound. I stumbled through alleyways, my backpack feeling impossibly heavy, my breath ragged. The silence between the distorted city sounds was the worst, a heavy, waiting silence that promised something terrible was just around the corner. Then, I understood. Maria's words echoed in my mind, the oldest magic often asks a price. The legend of the fountain wasn't just about granting wishes, it was about something ancient, something that fed on human desire, twisting it, using it as a key to unlock a darker reality. This wasn't a simple curse, it was the work of an unseen hand, a dark entity bound to the fountain, manipulating the desires of those who sought its power. It didn't grant wishes out of benevolence, it granted them to consume the experience, to pull its victims into its own domain, an authentic experience crafted from their deepest fears and the city's hidden history. I had wished to see everything, and the entity was showing me exactly that, its Rome, unfiltered and terrifying. Every rustle of leaves, every distant echo, felt like the entity watching me, guiding me deeper into its twisted playground. It wasn't chasing me, it was hurting me. My wish had trapped me in its horrifying reality, and the escape wasn't just about finding a way out of the city, it was about finding a way out of its grip, out of the reality it had imposed upon me. I had to get back to the fountain. The thought chilled me to the bone, but it was the only place that felt significant. It was the source of the curse, the point of entry. Maybe, just maybe, it could be the key to escape. Navigating the nightmare city toward the fountain was a desperate struggle. The streets actively resisted me. They shifted and changed, buildings rearranging themselves, paths disappearing, walls closing in. The faces in the windows were now openly monstrous, leering, and whispering my name. The beautiful Baroque statues lining the streets seemed to reach for me as I passed, their marble hands turning to gray, leathery flesh in my mind's eye. My feet were bruised and bleeding, my clothes torn. I hadn't eaten or slept in what felt like days. My initial excitement, my innocent desire for magic, felt like a cruel, distant joke. All I felt now was crippling fear and a desperate, primal urge to survive. Finally, I heard it, the roaring cascade of water, no longer majestic but sounding like a hungry beast. I stumbled into the piazza. It wasn't filled with laughing tourists anymore. It was empty. The air was heavy with the scent of ozone and decay. The water in the fountain churned violently, no longer clear but a dark, viscous liquid. The powerful sculptures looked alive, their stone muscles straining, their faces contorted in silent screams. And in the center, shimmering faintly in the unnatural light, was the unseen hand, not a physical form, but a presence so overwhelmingly ancient and malicious that it made my very soul recoil. It pulsed with dark energy, and I felt its awareness settle on me, cold and dissecting. It had granted my wish. It had shown me its Rome. Now it intended to keep me. I stood at the edge of the fountain, the same spot where I had tossed my coin. Fear threatened to paralyze me, but the instinct to survive, the memory of the life I wanted back, was stronger. I didn't know if tossing another coin would work, if apologizing would help, if anything I did mattered. But I had to try. I reached into my pocket, my hand shaking uncontrollably, and pulled out another euro coin. It felt cold and slick in my hand. I looked at the churning, dark water, at the screaming stone figures, at the pulsing malevolence in the center. I take it back, I whispered, my voice hoarse. I don't want this. I don't want the authentic experience. I just want to go home. I closed my eyes, forcing myself to ignore the sounds of cracking stone and wet, scraping noises that seemed to emanate from the fountain. With a final, desperate surge of will, I threw the coin as hard as I could toward the center of the fountain, toward the unseen hand. There was a piercing shriek, not from the statues, but from the air itself. The ground beneath me trembled. The water in the fountain surged upward in a black wave, threatening to engulf me. I felt a searing pain in my hand, like I had plunged it into ice and fire simultaneously. The horrifying images intensified, the monstrous faces, the shifting walls, the oppressive darkness. It felt like the entity was fighting back, trying to pull me deeper, anchor me permanently in its reality. I screamed, staggering back, shielding my face as the black water crashed down around the fountain. I expected to be swallowed, to be consumed by the darkness. But the wave subsided. Slowly, hesitantly, I opened my eyes. The dark water was gone. The fountain was churning again, but the water was clear. The sculptures were still and beautiful, just stone. The terrifying presence was weaker, a fading echo. The piazza was still empty, the light still dim, but the absolute terror, the sense of active malice, had receded. It wasn't over. I knew that instantly. The air still felt cold, the silence still heavy. But the horrifying, dynamic distortion of reality had lessened. I hadn't broken the curse, not fully. But perhaps I had wounded it, or maybe, just maybe, the entity demanded a true desire, and the desire to escape, the plea for home, was just authentic enough to loosen its grip. I didn't wait. I turned and ran, my legs burning, my mind screaming, through streets that still seemed unsettlingly quiet and too dark, but no longer actively trying to trap me. I ran until I saw the first signs of normalcy, a distant street lamp that didn't flicker maliciously, the faint sound of a car horn that didn't morph into a shriek. I eventually found my way back to the edge of the city, collapsing near a busy road just as the first gray light of dawn touched the sky. I was found by a confused taxi driver, covered in dirt and scratches, babbling incoherently about fountains and monsters. I made it home. But the authentic experience stays with me. Rome, the beautiful, vibrant city, is now overlaid in my memory with the twisted, horrifying version I saw. I know the darkness is still there, lurking beneath the surface, waiting for the next innocent tourist who wishes for something too deeply from forces they don't understand. Be careful what you wish for. The Trevi Fountain might grant it, but the price isn't just a euro coin. It's your reality, your sanity, and maybe even your soul. The most authentic experiences are not always the ones you want. Remember that next time you stand by an ancient well or a powerful, storied fountain, and feel the urge to lean in and whisper your deepest desire. The unseen hands might be listening.
Tattered, trembling, but breathing. Dragged from the grip of an ancient city that showed her its true face. Not the Rome in travel brochures or on glossy postcards, but the Rome that exists behind the veil, one built on sacrifice, shadow, and secrets whispered into stone. She only wanted magic. She got a nightmare instead. We don't often think of wishes as dangerous. They're meant to be innocent, tossed into fountains, whispered on birthday candles, scrawled into diaries under moonlight. But what if the very act of wishing is like knocking on a locked door? And what if something ancient lives behind that door, and it answers? In our desperate longing for wonder, for connection, for something real, we often forget. Old places remember. Old magic listens. And old debts are never erased, only waiting to be claimed. The Trevi Fountain still stands, dazzling by day, mysterious by night. Tourists still gather, coins still fly through the air, and the water still glitters with hope. But now, you know the truth. Or at least, a piece of it. So next time you visit a sacred site, next time your fingers close around a coin and your heart trembles with longing, ask yourself this. Do you really know what you're wishing for? And more importantly, who's listening? Thanks for joining me today on 9 Lives of Fear. And remember, some places weren't built to be understood. They were built to feed, to wait, and to answer. Until next time, sleep light and don't trust the water. Hey, horror fans. If you enjoyed our chilling tale and want to keep the spine-tingling stories coming, don't forget to hit that like button. Your support keeps the darkness alive. Share this video with your friends, let's spread the fear together. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications, so you never miss a hair-raising moment. Join our community of thrill seekers and prepare for more eerie adventures. Thanks for watching, and remember, stay scared.